Okay, so today is day 20 of Bible in 90 days, or what's in the Bible, where we're reading through the entire Bible just to get a summary or an idea of what the full story, the full picture of the story of the Bible, kind of says. So we're currently in the Old Testament at the moment, from Genesis all the way to Malachi. Then we're going to do the New Testament, which is Matthew to Revelation. But at the moment, we're in the book of First Samuel that we started yesterday, which was in the time of the judges in the Israelites' history. So First Samuel chapter 3 all the way to 15 is our reading today, where we get to hear a lot about Samuel, then the introduction of Saul as the first king of Israel, and how things kind of go with him there. So Samuel, as you remember yesterday, was the son of Hannah, who had been barren for a very long time, but then she prayed, and then she was given the son, and she vowed the son to the service of God for his entire life. So here, when we pick up the story, he is in the temple, or wherever Eli was, serving under him and kind of learning from him. So First Samuel chapter 3, Samuel is serving under Eli, and we're also told how rare God's revelation was at this time. God calls Samuel with the help of Eli and tells him about what he was about to do to Eli's household. We also hear about Samuel's trustworthiness in this chapter. 1 Samuel chapter 4, Philistines make war against Israel, and Israel are defeated. So in this time as well, the Philistines, even from Judges, remember last time when we were reading that the Philistines were becoming to be this nation that was always warring against Israel. So the Philistines make war against Israel again, and this time they actually win. Israel bring the Ark of the Covenant, which was the sign of God's presence with Israel. They bring the covenant into the camp, hoping that this would change their fortunes and they would win the war, but they actually lost again. Eli, who was the priest, his sons, who are now judging Israel at this point, they die in this battle, and the Ark is actually captured away from Israel and taken by the Philistines. News of the Ark being stolen or being taken by the Philistines shocks Eli so much that he falls over and he dies on the spot. Phineas, or the wife of Phineas, also gives birth at that time, and she dies. I think she calls the child Ichabod to say that the glory of God has departed from Israel. 1 Samuel 5, Philistines have taken this ark. They return home with the ark and place it in their temple next to their god. They had a god, the Philistines, called Dagon. But it turns out that every day when they would wake up, they would see that the statue of Dagon would be broken up, and it would be on the floor. They would put it back up, and it would be broken up again. Probably a testament of the ark of the covenant, or the presence of God in that temple, and what it was doing. So the ark then is taken to different cities within the Philistines, just trying to find out what they're gonna do with it. But everywhere that it went, the people were struck with disease or plagues, or things were just not working out well. So they had to make a plan to get rid of this ark and send it back to Israel. 1 Samuel 6, the Philistines make the plan to return the ark to the Israelites, and they send it on, with some sacrifices, etc. Because there's some people actually in Philistine that knew about the history of the Israelites, so they tried the best that they could to appease the God of Israel by sending it back with some sacrifices. So they then actually get a specific sign that it was God that was sending these plagues to them and causing the issues that they were having. So the ark returns to Beth Shemesh, which is in Israel now, but it had to be sent down to Kiriath Jearim because God killed some people there in Beth Shemesh. 1 Samuel 7, the Israelites, they cry out to God because of the Philistines, and Samuel at this point is a prophet in his own right, a priest. He prays for the Israelites, and he tells them to destroy their idols because they were worshipping false idols. So if you remember, anytime they were worshipping false idols and running away from God and not repenting, their enemies would take over Israel. So Samuel tells them to destroy their idols and to repent, and he makes an offering whilst the Philistines, they come to make war against them again. God miraculously intervenes this time around, and the Israelites manage to drive out the Philistines. They win the war, and they take back their land. 1 Samuel 8, after Samuel was old, he installed his sons to be judges over Israel, but they took bribes and they perverted justice, and they disrespected the office that they had as judges, struck priests. The people of Israel then demand a king, which God replies they were not rejecting Samuel or his sons, but they were actually rejecting God. So this was a situation that was happening, that they then said, okay, we want a king, but really God was saying underneath this action was a different motive altogether, that they wanted to be like other nations. So Samuel is told to warn them about what the king would do and what he would take from them, and the people themselves, the kind of servitude that they would have to this king. But the people still insist to have a king. 1 Samuel 9, this is how Saul enters the story. Saul, who was going to be King Saul, Saul of how son of Kish, a Benjamite. So being a Benjamite, remember we got that background from the book of Judges at the end of why the Benjamite was the smallest tribe. So Saul actually mentions this himself, that I'm only a Benjamite at the time of the anointing by Samuel. But anyway, the son of Kish, a Benjamite, meets Samuel after losing his donkey. So this is how they actually meet, as a chance meeting, because they're told that, oh, there's a guy called Samuel, he's a seer. If we go to him, he'll tell us where these donkeys are. So God had already told Samuel that this would happen. So Saul was already kind of expecting, was expecting Saul already, and he treats him in a way that actually Saul was not expecting. 1 Samuel 10, Saul is then anointed king of Israel. So Saul is the first king of Israel. He's anointed king, and he goes back home. He meets some people along the way and also starts to prophesy, which was two signs really that he was given by Samuel to tell him that God had definitely made him the king of Israel. So Samuel calls all of Israel, and by using lots, which is like maybe dice, if you look at it, like random chance or whatever, but obviously because God had already selected Saul, these lots were made in such a way that they made Saul the king. So Samuel will get a speech from Samuel about what God thought about this process. He then gives them the initial laws for the kings. We see an initial mini rebellion against Saul, and how Saul kind of just brushes it away. Then we hear that the Ammonites were also oppressing the Israelites at this time. 1 Samuel 11, Saul his first maybe huge war. He delivers Jabesh Gilead from the Ammonites, and his kingship at that time is renewed. 1 Samuel 12, we have an address from Samuel. He gives them the history of the Israelites from Egypt all the way into the promised land, and how God had taken them from Egypt and delivered them and provided for them in the desert, and how they had gone away and how they had gone astray, and the judges that had been raised, and how everything had happened to the Israelites until this point. So God is obviously displeased with the fact that they wanted and they shouted for a king, which was really a sign of rejecting God as king over Israel, wanting a human king for themselves. But anyway, he says he would continue to pray for them and make sure that he would teach them the right way to live. 1 Samuel 13, we have about Saul and Jonathan's armies, because now they had armies, and how they were attacking the Philistines. We hear that the Philistines at this point, they gather tens of thousands of their army and they make war against Israel. So at this point, Saul was actually supposed to wait for Samuel to come and make a burnt offering, so as for them to be able to go into this war with God's blessing. But people start getting afraid because the Philistines are getting closer. So Saul decides to take it upon himself to do a burnt offering, which he was not supposed to do. So Samuel then arrives just as he's finishing this burnt offering or whatever, and tells him, because he's obviously shocked that Saul would do such a thing, and he tells him that although the kingdom was probably going to be in Saul's family and the rest of his generations, it was actually now going to be taken away from him because he had disobeyed God. This is where we also get maybe a preview about the kind of king that God was now going to put in place, and it actually says a man after God's own heart. We also get a side information there that at this point there were no weapons in Israel. 1 Samuel 14, Jonathan and his armor bearer, just the two of them alone, they win a battle against a bunch of Philistines with God's help. Then the rest of Israel then follow after that to finish off the job. We also hear about a rash vow that Saul made regarding the whole army not eating anything, and Jonathan hadn't heard about this, so there was a little bit of drama, but that then kind of fades away because people kind of stand up for Jonathan and say, listen, we've managed to defeat a lot of the Philistines today. This is because of Jonathan, so Jonathan shouldn't have to to die. We also hear more about Saul's victories, because he had a lot of victories as he led Israel into war, kind of taking them away from the control of the Philistines. But we hear that there was still constant war between Saul and the Philistines. 1 Samuel 15, which is the last chapter of today, Saul was sent by God, through Samuel, to go and kill all the Amalekites and their livestock and everything in those cities, and not to save a single thing. So Samuel goes, but when he goes there, he then actually doesn't kill the king. He just captures him and brings it back to Israel. He also brings some sheep, some goats, some livestock, things that he was told, not to do. God is not happy about this at all, and he regrets. It says he regrets, or he was sorry that he had made Saul, the king of Israel. And Samuel then makes the famous speech about obedience is better than sacrifice. So whatever you think you may be bringing to the table, God wanted Saul to simply obey him, and Saul was having a really hard time simply obeying what God was telling him to do. So Saul at this point is actually happy. He thinks he had actually done the commandment of the Lord. But Samuel then tells him again that surely the kingdom would be taken from him, and it would be given to a neighbor. And we hear that Samuel does not see Saul again until his death. So that's day 20. Tomorrow we continue again in the story of 1 Samuel. We're going to get into 2 Samuel, then continue as we go. So maybe we're going to begin to see Israel under the different kings, which is a totally new section, I suppose, of the Israelites' history. So hopefully that's helpful. I will see you guys tomorrow.